You're listening to Make Some Noise Minisode number 618.
Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast, a mini-sode, just solo me today. And before I jump into the content, I wanted to remind you that I have two spots left for coaching this fall. Fall can be a really great time to get your shit together. You know what I mean. Goals that you want to make, things that you've been procrastinating on, decisions that you are having a hard time making, new skills that you want to acquire and practice and integrate in your life. Any and all of those things we can work on. So just head on over to andreaowen.com/links. That's where you'll find the page to the coaching information and the application. Let's get into it. Before I started recording this, I'm like, am I repeating myself in these mini-sodes? Have I already talked about this? Probably. But if you have been following me for any length of time, especially those of you who have been with me from the beginning, I tend to take you through real life situations, circumstances, challenges that I'm going through. I try not to tell stories and talk to you when I'm in the wound, if you will. I try to do it from the scar. But I do think that I kind of mastered the art of times when I do talk about things from the wound, and it's fine. I'm not that worried about it. And this might be one of them. And as you know at this point, I'm going through a divorce, and logistically, the way that it works in the state of North Carolina, they are big advocates for reconciliation, which I get it. I understand. That's sweet. It's cute of them. And I know some people reconcile after they've decided to separate. So the way that it works in North Carolina is that you have to be separated, i.e. living at 2 separate addresses for 1 year and 1 day before you can get divorced. And so my soon-to-be ex-husband and I just started that process. I moved out of our marital home. When was that? June 1st, 2024, fairly recently. So I say all that because semantics-wise, I will say separated. We are separated. And I posted on Instagram, I was like a week and a half ago or so by the time this comes out. I posted an Instagram reel where I had recorded myself talking about this the day that I signed the separation agreement. And so that was mid-May 2024. And I sat on it. I didn't post it to any social media because it was just a little bit too painful at the time. I'm like, I need to sit on this for a few weeks before I post it. So I finally posted it, and it felt good to post it. And in case you're wondering, in case you noticed, you probably wouldn't notice, but it's going forward, I will not share any super specific details about going forward about the ending of my marriage or even my marriage. Unless they're in like a very positive light. I will talk about my stuff. I can talk about all the, the stuff I need to take responsibility for, the negative things that I did. But in terms of my soon-to-be ex-husband, I will not be disclosing any of that information. And part of the reason for that is, this is my kid's dad, Like, I just think about if it were my mom and she had a platform like this. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager also. I would be mortified and deeply, deeply hurt if she said bad things about my dad. So out of respect for the father of my children, I won't be going into any negative details on that. So this podcast is more so about making hard decisions, when you have to make a hard decision and you don't, because both outcomes are terrible. And I know I shared this before, but I'm going to share it again just because it was such an impactful moment in my life. And for anyone who has gone through this or will go through this, I just want to acknowledge it. It was something I've never experienced before. It was just really different the first time I got divorced. I don't know if it was because it was in the state of California. It was probably a combination of things. It was in another state. We had 0 children together and we had 0 assets together. So it was a very clean and easy break. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. It's the way to do it. Emotionally, it was not as clean of a break, but this go around, emotionally, it was not a clean break. And also logistically, it's not a clean break. So, and also we're using divorce attorneys this time, which we did not the first time I got divorced. It was very easy and a lot less expensive, I might add. I was at my divorce attorney's office signing a long-awaited separation agreement. And the way that it worked in my experience is I got ushered into a small office, small kind of like conference room thing with like a small table. And it was the paralegal. It wasn't my attorney. She was in court that day. So it was the paralegal, and I had never even met her yet. And I come in and there are 4 stacks of papers all stapled together. And the long and short of it is that she said, okay, here it is. I'm going to leave you alone while you read through it. We highly recommend that you read through it, even though you've probably read this several times, which I had. Read through it one more time, make sure everything is in here, and then sign all 4 copies. And she said, let me know when you're done. And so she left the room, and I'm sitting there alone in this small office. And the first thing I noticed are the pens. They were blue Bic pens that you can get like at the dollar store or like, CVS. And I later found out that they specifically want you to use blue so they know that it's an original copy of your signature versus black. It's harder to tell. And I felt, my first thought was, can I use a better pen? I should have brought my own pen. I should have brought my own significant special pen because this feels like such a significant and special signature. And I don't know, it just felt wrong. And then reading through all the pages that I had read before, I got to the end and noticed that my soon-to-be ex-husband had already signed on his line signature, which sort of took me aback. And seeing his signature that I had seen countless, hundreds of times before, probably, kind of broke me. Just seeing his name already signed, and the only blank that was there was the need for my signature, and reading through all of the pages, which I had this thought before when we were creating the separation agreement, and I don't have a better word for it than dehumanizing. I'm going to use that word. It's kind of dramatic, but that's how I felt. It felt dehumanizing to my marriage. It felt dehumanizing to my relationship. It felt like everything got reduced to about 12 or so pages. Maybe it was more than that. Or maybe anywhere between 12 and 20 pages of legal jargon. They refer to me as wife with a capital W. They refer to him as husband with a capital H. It had the date of our wedding. It had our kids' names and their birthdays on there, our marital home address. It felt so reductive. And I was wishing that there was a part, I'm like, can we put like a section in here, section 13 or whatever, that talks about the good stuff? And it's not that just like bad emotional things were talked about in there. It just felt stark. Lack of emotion. And I felt like this is one of the most emotional decisions, moments, circumstances of my life. Whew. It was weird. It was very surreal. So there's that. So I was experiencing that in the office that day. And I need to take a quick ad break to pay the bills around here. But when we get back, I'm going to tell you what happened on my drive home. Be right back. Talk about stressful when you get a surprise bill and your paycheck isn't coming for another week. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for school supplies or new school clothes for the kids, or even a last-minute weekend away. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability and security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. If you're like me, a woman over 40 dealing with things like hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, mood swings, vaginal dryness, or weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. These symptoms can be linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. And the experts at MIDI Health understand what you're going through and know how to assist. MIDI clinicians specialize in menopause care, offering safe, effective, FDA-approved treatments. And MIDI care isn't covered by insurance, which is amazing. You don't have to push through this alone. Schedule a virtual visit to discuss your symptoms and health history in detail. You'll leave feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling so much better. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com, joinmidi.com.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
So on my way home, I was still living in my marital home at that point, just a couple of weeks after I signed that separation agreement. I did move out. But I was driving back to my marital home, and if you know me, you know how much I am a huge fan of Florence and the Machine. Florence Welch is probably my favorite lyricist. It's one of those things where, you know how do you have that one musician or that one band where you're like, they're the only people that understand me? That's how I feel about Florence. And one of her songs, Shake It Out, it came out right around the time, or maybe not too long before I got sober in 2011. And in the chorus, she says, and it's hard to dance with the devil on your back, so shake him off. And back then I looked at it like, the decision to get sober was a hard one for me. It was a street fight there for a little while. And I was just so scared. It's another podcast episode, but hearing her sing that song, it's hard to dance with a devil on your back. And that devil on your back could be a number of things. And for me at that time in 2011, it was the decision of getting sober, and the devil on my back was alcohol. It was my relationship with drinking, and it was hard to dance. I tried and tried and tried, and it became harder and harder and harder. And then fast forward all these years later, the devil on my back was the decision to stay or go in my marriage. Also, one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. And so in the song, there's a bridge in the song, and she sings the following verse. And I was driving home, both hands on the wheel, and anytime I'm in some kind of like emotional state or even just happy and whatever, I will put Florence on, and I'm, the volume's all the way up. If it's just me in my car, you bet your booty that the volume's all the way up and I'm singing my heart out. There's a couple of her songs where it just sounds like she's conjuring. I swear she's conjuring with her poetry, with her voice, and she just howls in some of her songs. Oh, chef's kiss. Anyway, and Shake It Out, highly recommend. I'll put the link to Spotify and YouTube in the show notes if you want to go listen and or watch. And she says, and I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned if I don't. So here's to drinks in the dark at the end of my road. And I'm ready to suffer, and I'm ready to hope. It's a shot in the dark aimed right at my throat. And so I feel like that short bridge verse says so much, I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned if I don't. That's the way it feels when you are looking at a decision where both outcomes suck. Both outcomes feel terrible. Both outcomes feel uncertain. And I'm ready to suffer, and I'm ready to hope. To me, I walk away from that verse feeling like, yes, both outcomes suck. And I had to get to a decision in both of those instances, the decision of me getting sober and the decision of me leaving my marriage, where I had to choose myself. I had to choose myself, over a substance the first time. And I had to choose myself over another person, over other people, over a dream that probably wouldn't come to life that I had, a wish, a hope that I had that had proven that it was not going to happen. So that was choosing myself in both of those situations. And I'm ready to suffer, and I'm ready to hope. To me, that says just that. I know it's going to suck. When I make this decision, this is going to break my heart. But also there's hope. You have to get to that place where you're ready to both suffer and hope. And then she says, it's a shot in the dark aimed right at my throat. Yeah, that's what it was. It was a chance. It was a jump where I didn't know if the net would appear. And I knew that taking this chance was going to be a shot right at my throat, that it was going to hurt so much. And so I think I've said this before in my books, and I've said it here on the podcast. Everyone has their own pain tolerance. Everyone has their own level that they need to get to before they make that hard decision. Some people sit on it for years, like I did in my marriage. Some people sit on it for months, like I did when I got sober. It was a much shorter process, but I nor anyone else can tell you when the time will come when you're ready to make that decision. I think about all the really hard life lessons I've learned now that I'm staring down the barrel of 50 years old. And people could have given me the best advice or even told me, like, here's what you should do, because here's what is 99% likelihood is going to happen. And I still wouldn't take their advice if I wasn't ready. I still want to learn the hard way. It's not that I want to, but it's just like there's something inside of me. And I think that this is very universal. It's part of the human experience of us learning lessons the hard way. And this is, what parenting experts tell us to do is like, let your children fail, let them fly, let them learn about life and what it means to make hard decisions and make the wrong choice and learn in hindsight. That is life. At the end of that bridge, she goes on to say, because looking for heaven found the devil in me, looking for heaven found the devil in me, but what the hell? I'm going to let it happen to me. And it's so much more beautiful when she sings it, because at that point in the song, she is just howling and she goes back into the chorus. Getting to that point where you're in so much pain that you finally make the decision is what shaking it out is, honestly, is what is getting that devil off your back, whatever that is. Whether it's a hard decision to leave your job, whether it's a hard decision to leave a relationship, a friendship, decide whether or not to continue in something that just doesn't feel in your gut that it's the right thing for you. I don't envy you if you're there, because I'll see you. It's kind of the worst. And throughout all of this, of course, the way my brain works, I've thought about a book to write for people in that place. And then also the aftermath, the grief of walking away from something and or having it completely fucking explode and being in the darkest place, because I was there this time last year. It does get better if you're there. I remember thinking to myself, like, oh God, if I can just make it to this time next year, I will get there just 1 hour after the other, one day at a time, one sleep after another. And here I am. So it will happen for you if you're in a very, very dark place. I hope this minisode was helpful for you. Again, I have some spots open for coaching. If you're in a place where you think you might need some support, and we can hop on the phone for 20 minutes and see if I am the best support for you. And if not, I will be honest and tell you, and maybe refer you to somebody who is a better help for you. Thank you so much for being here. You know how much I appreciate your time. I know how incredibly valuable it is. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
Hey there, I'm Debbie Reber, the founder of Tilt Parenting and the author of the book Differently Wired. The mission of Tilt is to change the way neurodivergence, whether that's having a learning disability, having ADHD, being gifted, autistic, or some combination of all of the above, is perceived and experienced so differently wired kids and the parents like us raising them can truly thrive. On the Tilt Parenting podcast, I get to talk with authors, therapists, educators, and parenting experts who are committed to this mission. I ask the questions my listeners are most curious about when it comes to supporting our kids. And in turn, my guests share strategies for challenges, out-of-the-box ideas for navigating school, best practices for therapies, tips for advocating, and so many thoughtful insights on what it really takes to help our kids grow up feeling seen and respected so they can create awesome lives for themselves. I know that raising a differently wired kid can feel overwhelming and isolating, but I promise you, you are not alone, and it can feel so much better. If you're on this parenting journey, come listen to Tilt Parenting. Together, we can shift this paradigm and show up for our exceptional kids with hope, possibility, and joy.